Chapter 4. Somewhere in the eastern Devil's Spine Mountains. "Lord Scaffin," one of the Redrak legionnaires exclaimed, "your leg is still broken. Stay in bed." "Cock off, I'm fine," Scaffin growled, pushing himself onto his feet. He was already in a bad mood for having his kill be robbed by standard Ormel ineptitude. He's not having it today. "My lord, please." One of the surgeons, a spellcaster draped in bright blue robes, protested. "Your body still needs time to reestablish its balance." "I said I'm fine," Scaffin roared angrily, his anger scent growing strong. "Now tell me the damage already. How many did we lose?" "Over a few hundred, sir," the legionnaire reported meekly, fearing his wrath. "About 100 more requiring surgery. We're down to just 200 fighting arms." Scaffin was still for a moment, yet his anger scent continued rising. Everyone backed away in fear. Then, like a bursting crescendo, Scaffin slammed his fist down onto the side table at his bedside. "Cock, has anyone found that Ormel boss, Hagrim? Anyone?" "No, sir," the soldier replied, barely containing his fear. "Scouts have searched high and low, but they found no trace of Hagrim. The other Ormel he commanded have already left the area, no doubt finding another cave to hide in." Heaving with rage, Scaffin finally returned to sitting on his bed, thinking over his next move. The next several moments were tense. The legionaries and the surgeon dared not to speak, in fear of further enraging the Crimson Redrak. "We're returning home," he finally spoke, voice dripping with wrathful frustration. "We've lost too many good men here, and not enough Ormel have died. We'll return to Iron Peaks and regain our strength. Let them think they've won. Then we'll strike again." "Understood, sir." The legionnaire saluted and made his way out of the command tent. After a few careful warnings from the surgeon about the leg, Scaffin finally was alone, in peace within his tent. Laying upon his bed, he fished out an amulet from beneath his chest plate and opened it. He stared at it for several long moments, lips trembling, before bringing it close to his face for a time. With a shuddering breath, he closed the amulet and allowed it to rest upon his chest once more. Parnak's village. Jörn was resting on a bench looking at the town square. The brown-furred Redrak leaned some, smiling, at the peaceful sight of his village. Although things have definitely shaken up what was once a quiet village, the witch, Vala's disappearance, and Derek arriving, Jörn didn't believe they were a sign of things to come. Off to the right, a couple of young boys were walking towards some location, holding hands and talking merrily. Towards the center, the various people shopped and tended to the stalls that carried wares and items made by the village itself. Nurses is the one who handles goods that comes into and out from Parnak's. His thoughts were interrupted by the very same man he just thought of, Nurses. He took a seat next to Jörn, letting out a sigh as he settled in. "Long day, friend?" Jörn asked with a soft chuckle. "Thought I misplaced some fine glassware from Dennis's." Nurses nodded, leaning forward. "Do you realize how much coin those things fetch for? If I had lost them, I'd be struggling to make up for such a huge cost." "I take it you found them?" Jörn said with a smirk. "Turns out, for some reason, I never actually put them into safe storage after receiving them," Nurses responded, wiping across his forehead. "Think my mind was busy that day? I normally don't do a thing like that, especially for what I got. The finest pieces, one in particular, shaped into a beautiful woman. I remember growing up that glass shaping was said to be a lost art." Jörn commented as his eyes wandered to the sky. "Is it Dennisas who rediscovered it? What exactly is turning this lost art into art again? I've been hearing that a blacksmith's son wasn't interested in working with metal, always wanted to work with glass." Nurses explained. "He ended up wandering the land. When he came back, he knew exactly how to work with glass, like the old masters back in the Empire." "Sounds as though he found someone," Jörn exclaimed, back to facing Nurses. "To think, after all this time, someone, somewhere, has continued such a beautiful ancestry, and was even willing to teach such craft. The luckiest boy of his generation, I tell you." Nurses chuckled, relaxing further on his seat. "Just from what I have to pay for them alone, that one is set for life, he is." Jörn nodded in agreement, though his expression soon turned melancholy. "Do you remember the stories that our parents would tell us, like their parents would? the way the empire was, how there was no poor, just the rich and richer. The land was safe, everyone was well fed, and our people were amongst the proudest of all? I do, Nurses said with a sigh. All this time, and not once have we ever had someone come forth and bring it back once more. I'd even settle for one that was a mere fragment or shadow of what it was. It'll happen, my friend, Jon said confidently. It may not be today, or tomorrow, or maybe even our lifetimes. But eventually, we will regain our lost pride and glory. And when we do, I am sure that we won't let the Melfolk take it away from us again. Speaking of Melfolk, I just can't figure out the Hamel, can you? Nurses said in a quizzical tone. It's as if they don't know what they want. I'm hearing talk that they're, Eastern Lords? I'm hearing that they're causing some trouble for the Amel north of them because of what they're doing to the Woodrak and Fadrak in the forest there. But then you have those in the west who are just like the other Melfolk, always believing that the divines have established some divine order. Hasn't it been said that during the Empire's time, they were far different than what they are today? Jon asked with a nod. Less spiritual, more focused on the land and her people? I wouldn't know. Nurses shrugged. All I know is that with the Amel, Demel, and the others, I know to keep a blade drawn. But the Hamel, you just can't tell what they'll be like. I'm actually wondering if Swabia is going to break down, be split east and west. Personally, I believe that might be a good thing. For us, that is, Jon commented, clasping his hands together as he thought. The Swabians in the eastern portions are considered infamous among the Melfolk for their love of us Dracs. If Swabia does fall to civil war and end up being split in two, I think the idea of an East Swabia, who is friendly towards us, will be a great boon for us, might give the Melfolk some pause before they take action against us. If I'm being honest, I won't wait for it, Nurses replied darkly. History hasn't been kind to us since the Empire's fall. Can't help but wonder if the Melfolk are onto something, that maybe we are destined to be at the bottom of the divine social order. I refuse to believe that, Jon said sternly as he shook his head. If we are indeed suffering bad luck, it's to forge us into a stronger people. That way, when our second empire appears, we'll be far more than what we once were. I hope you're right, Jon, I really do. Nurses sighed. Excuse me, Taiban? A woman's voice interrupted them. Jon recognized her. It was Hannah, probably the most annoying opponent he's dealt with since becoming Daban. He already readied himself for whatever complaint she has in mind. Yes, Hannah? What's on your mind? He asked politely. Have you seen Derek anywhere by chance? She asked with some concern, looking around for a moment. Already something felt wrong. Jon stood up, though not in a way to alarm her. I don't believe so. Why do you ask? Well, me and Nexara tried to tell Derek that he was in good company. Hannah began, but he just walked away when we did. Now we can't find him anywhere. I'm becoming worried he may have left the village. Excuse me, Hannah, were you talking about Derek? A man from the crowd approached them. I haven't seen him for a while, have you? She asked with a nod. Yeah, actually, I saw him head out in the woods that way. He answered, pointing the way. Jon's heart froze instantly. What? Why didn't you stop him? Do you realize there's still a witch out there? I thought the witch only hunts during the night, the man protested. And what if he stumbles on her hut or hideout? Nurses joined in with a stern voice. He then looked to Jon. Cock, what do we do, Jon? Send word to the others, Jon said simply with a sigh. It looks like tonight's search will be done earlier than expected. Derek had wandered relatively deep into the woods by the time he decided to settle down for some thinking. Parking himself by a relatively large tree, he let himself rest against the trunk and stared up towards the sky, seeing the lights scatter and break apart by the leaves. It was peaceful and quiet, something Derek never realized he needed. He was supposed to be thinking about what was happening with the village, try and determine if he was truly wrong or not. Instead, his mind wandered back to his old life, his home, and for every second he thought of it, his chest tightened all the stronger. Eventually, it reached its peak when Derek couldn't hold it in anymore and allowed himself to let it out. burying his new face into his hands. He just wanted to go home. He was desperately hoping that this was all a nightmare, that he indeed was in some coma from a nuclear strike or something like that. He just doesn't know what to do. And he has nobody. Scarface, Splinter, and Albert are nowhere to be found. And that's even assuming they're alive. Derek had no way of knowing what happened during that time in the Black Void, where there was absolute nothingness. Was he there for millions of years or a second? Was he in a completely different world compared to them, or just put somewhere else? He felt alone, helpless. He can't even reveal himself to these rat people either. If someone he met out of nowhere told him that they were actually an alien who was transplanted in a human body, there's no way he'd believe them. He would think they're just some crazy person off of their medicine. But equally as shitty is the situation he inadvertently created. Everyone thinks he was an abused child who grew up under a predatory Taiban who exploited him for years. If he keeps this up, sooner or later an innocent man is going to be killed. Derek was hoping that's not what'll happen, but he just can't take that chance. His only option, considering the realistic reaction to how he'd explain the truth, as well as preventing a possibly good man for being blamed for something he didn't do, was to just bite the bullet and become the village madman. Everybody will mock him, make fun of him, all of that, but at the very least he'll save an innocent from being framed. He hated life. He hated everything right now. He just wants out. Derek would do anything for a do-over. He would do anything to have his pets back again. "Hello there." A voice pierced the air, despite being calm and soft. Derek's very skeleton shot out of his body when it did. He quickly realized he's developing a habit of being easily sneaked up on. And there it was, further evidence of the world he was in. A male elf, a wood elf, if he were to take a guess. Long, bright brown hair, with a skin that carried a copper-like tinge to it. Looking closely, Derek could faintly make out the pointed tips of his ears. "Ah, apologies, I didn't mean to scare you." The elf gave a laugh. "I couldn't help but notice you were rather down. Is everything all right?" Shuddering and giving a sniff, Derek nodded. Yeah, just having a bad day is all." "Ah, I hear you, friend." The elf nodded with tense lips. "Everybody gets those. I suppose you came here to try and find some peace and quiet?" Derek nodded, wiping away his tears. Sorry, am I bothering your hunting or—" "Oh, not at all," the elf replied happily. "Not at all. Say, I apologize if this is too sudden or strange for you, but I've always found that a nice, warm hug is often the best start to feeling better, yeah?" Whether it's his paranoia again or not, Derek couldn't help but feel red flags being raised from that. As he rose to his feet, Derek replied, Thank you for the thought, but I'll be fine. Please, don't let me keep you." "Aw, are you sure, friend?" The elf gave a mock-hurt expression. "I suppose that would make sense. I am rather odd for it. My friends and family would always poke fun at me for wanting hugs and such if I were down." "There's nothing wrong with that, promise," Derek replied, keeping a polite voice. "All I'm saying is that I'll be fine, and while I do appreciate the thought, I really do, I don't need it." "That's fair, friend." The elf nodded in understanding. "I hope your day gets better from here. There's nothing quite like having an excellent day, you know." "Thank you, sir," Derek said, and then turned to leave, deciding that maybe staying in the village was better. He only made a few steps before he felt a sharp pinch in his neck. Yelping, Derek slapped at what he thought was a bee or wasp stinging him, but felt nothing. Quickly turning around, he saw the wood elf, having followed him, grinning and holding up what looks like a metal spike. As I've said, nothing is quite like having an excellent day. Vermin. The elf taunted, his voice carrying dripping disgust upon uttering that word. Derek could not fucking believe this. He hasn't even made it a week in this world, and already he's the center of what looked to be a rape scandal and now has fallen victim to a fucking horror movie scene. He did the very first thing that came to his mind. His legs pumped with every fiber of muscle in them they had as he ran. Very quickly, however, it became difficult. His legs refused to move. He could feel his muscles tightening against his will. Within just several steps, he crashed into the ground. Even turning onto his back was rapidly proving a challenge. Every single muscle he had in his body has gone haywire, rapidly and increasingly tensing. He could already feel the burn from their exhaustion, yet still they continued. He felt the elf's hand grip his shoulder and forced him onto his back. He could only look into the face of this horror movie's killer as he inspected over Derek's body. An excellent day indeed. Gray fur. Don't recall seeing that before. You'll fetch some nice coin for that. The elf smirked as he looked Derek over, like a hunter would for a prized catch. Enough coin that maybe I can finally get that house on the coast, watch those beautiful waves, and smell that nice ocean scent. And there he was again. All at once he felt helpless once more, far stronger than before, now aggravated by the unbridled terror of his approaching death. Just by his words, Derek knew what he was going to do. The elf was going to skin him. Why anyone would want rat fur is beyond him, but he didn't care. He tried everything, tried to force himself to move, but his muscles weren't listening anymore. They just froze into a powerful, frozen state of eternal tensing. Of all the things that would kill him, it had to be fucking tetanus. At least he knew that his new body didn't come with free vaccinations. "Hey!" a distant voice shouted out. "Wemo! Wemo! Damn it!" The elf cursed, already tensing up. Derek could hear the explosion of voices sounding out, as well as them approaching fast. The elf glared down at him with bloody murder in his eyes. "Consider yourself lucky, Redrak." And with that, the elf took off with incredible speed, easily dodging the various plants and overgrown roots in his way. Derek was alone for only a few moments before one of the rats, Redrax, appeared in view above him. He looked as if he was about to say something, but then stopped and bent down beside him. Derek could hear him taking some long sniffs near his neck. "I'll bet's mercy," the Redrax said with a shaky voice. "Yearn! Derek's been poisoned! Wamel poison!" He felt them before he saw them. It was the search party, same as last night, circling around him. Yearn broke through them and kneeled down, sniffing him as well before pulse-falling back in what must have been horror. "Get him back to the village! Hurry!" Yearn shouted. Derek felt a million hands grab from below him, and in one swift motion, he was lifted up into the air, soon feeling the motion of being transported. Yearn then appeared into Derek's view again, looking at him in the eyes. "Derek, we've got you! We're bringing you back to the village. You're going to be all right, lad." Derek couldn't even speak. Living up to its name of lockjaw, he can't move his mouth. He could only let out a grunt, and from there his eyes exploded with tears coming from unspeakable gratitude, fear, and helplessness. "Get him to the bed now!" Yearn shouted after the group barged down the door to his home, having to wade through a building crowd of shocked onlookers. In a cohesive whole, the group navigated up the short stairs and filed carefully into Yearn's personal bedroom. Quickly but carefully, they placed the paralyzed Redrak onto his bed. "Yearn, I don't have any medicine for this," Nurses said after catching his breath. "And we still haven't found Vala." "What about Hana's son, Demonax?" Yearn replied, hands placed at Derek's side. "Wasn't he considered for village messenger too? Is the boy even up to the job?" One of the searchers spoke up. "I know where he is," Hana shouted from behind the crowd. "I'll tell him right now." "Good woman," Yearn complimented as she already took off. "Everyone else, we have to do what we can for Derek until Demonax returns with the surgeon, understand?" Everybody confirmed in unison. It took several minutes of Hana rushing with all haste to find Demonax. He was relaxing by the village well, looking up at the sky. He looked at where she got near. "Mother, what is it?" "Demonax, Vala's missing. Derek's been attacked by a Wamel, and we need a surgeon," Hana said, simply. "Still think you can do better? Now's your time. Prove it." Demonax, after a brief moment of shocked surprise, shot to his feet and rapidly gave a look of confidence. "Already got travel supplies ready. Once I get those, I'll set out right away." "Hurry, hurry!" Hana urged, to which Demonax needed no additional prodding, taking off rapidly. "Kriegsburg, Grünes Meerregion, Swabia. Kronprinz Alfric III was in his throne, cheek upon fist, as he listened to the speakers arguing upon this case. The very day his father left to speak with the arrogant Westerner King Ertir, he was forced to preside over proceedings regarding an accusation that claims to a particular town were fabricated. What a great start to his passing of the crown. My lord, as I have demonstrated, we have not found any credible evidence that proves that my opponent has come anywhere near the proximity of Erstesdorf. The opposing speaker, Baron, finished his speech. Nay, the opponent, Difilden, shouted. Lord Baron has willfully ignored everything I have laid out for you. Everything I have submitted for your perusal has been verified to be credible and legitimate. The family of Vanderhoosen has indeed been the rulers of Erstesdorf for several generations, until the Great Demon War, where rulership has been changed hands to the current Gelfin family, who is pushing that poor holding right to the ground of filth and misery, which I have just said, Baron stated with an annoyed look and tone, the process of being certified, bribery, coercion, and skullduggery. The Vanderhoosen family are nothing more than an inept, backwards collection of hollow-skulled, bent-fingered, crooked-tongued, barely pleasing simpletons who think fire is the greatest invention of our time. Kronprinz, are you going to allow such lies in this hall? Difilden screeched in indignant surprise. How dare he? Enough! Alfric spoke with a booming voice, not once showing reaction. Lord Baron, you have overstepped with your words regarding the Vanderhoosen family. As for you, Lord Difilden, unfortunately, I am not convinced that these claims you're pressing are indeed genuine. My decision is as such, Lord Difilden. The Vanderhoosen's claims to Erstesdorf are considered invalid and, as such, denied. Lord Baron, you are to immediately supply a public apology for your words against the Vanderhoosens. I understand. Forgive my rudeness, Kronprinz, Baron said as he bowed. Difilden, however, was silent, his face blood-red and his fist clenched of such strength that his veins would pop at any moment. Alfric did not let that get to him and declared an end to the proceedings. With a sigh, the young Hamel exited his throne and began to walk towards the royal section of the palace when he was then joined by his companion, a tall and powerful Woodrock named Gunnar. How can you even stand them? Gunnar asked. Although his voice carried irritants, the rapid wagging of his tail indicated delight at being in Alfric's presence again. Part of the job, unfortunately, Alfric said simply and with resignation. Soon I'm going to become Unterkaiser of these lands. I have a feeling this will just be the beginning of it. Ugh, I think I also know what it means for me. Gunnar groaned. No more killing Melfolk in the forest. Watch what you say, friend, Alfric warned quickly. My father was summoned to the king's court to answer for those actions. If he hears word that the Kronprinz is involved... Sorry. Gunnar apologized rapidly, ears flattening. I didn't mean to, sir. Relax, friend. Honest mistake, Alfric said with a smile, petting Gunnar's head. The Woodrock enjoyed that deeply. Alfric let out a sigh, though. On the other hand, we can do some real good with the power and influence the Unterkaiser throne can provide. Such as, Gunnar asked curiously, as much as my father resents those savage Westerners pretending to be civilized, Alfric began, his displeasure evident. He doesn't desire war with them, doesn't want to see bloodshed for what he thinks is an unnecessary cause. I understand his position, but I strongly disagree with it. The Westerners are stuck in an age of barbarism and backwards thinking. We, on the other hand, continue to march forward into tomorrow. I think that soon, very soon, we'll easily crush those barbarians. If the other Melfolk hears that civil war may be brewing, Gunnar said with concern, then we'll put them to the blade if we have to, Alfric said calmly, eyes brimming with undeterred determination. The Promel were never like this. I am absolutely certain they would be horrified by what we're doing. And how do you know that, sir? Gunnar questioned. I thought detailed information about them is proving difficult to find. You hear about Klaus and Jon? Alfric asked. Gunnar shook his head, to which the Kronprinz answered. A bit to the west of Swabia, in the old ruins of a Promel city, we found bones. A Promel, looking as though they're holding what appeared to be an early Woodrock. The Amel and Demel are doing what they can to spin it. But I know the truth. The Promel loved the Dracs of their time and considered them dear friends. Now look at us, the children of the Promel, being monsters, demons to your people, the Sundering being the greatest example of our callous nature. Gnor processed this for a few moments, walking alongside his Hamel companion for some time before speaking his thoughts. What do you think they're like, the Promel? Well, going by the obvious, they were extremely powerful, Alfric said as he thought. Their cities were clearly far larger than any we could build, in both meanings, and we're still finding remains of their empire. You've ever heard talk about something called the Strasse? I've heard it a few times. What is it? Gnor nodded, then shrugged. The largest and longest road we have ever seen, made by the Promel. Alfric explained, awe in his voice. It stretches from the easternmost borders of Swabia all the way to the endless sea far to the west. And we're just now discovering that it isn't just one road, but one of many all connected together for rapid travel. How large is it? Gnor continued to question, fascinated by what he's hearing. Large enough to hold 3 carriages at once, if needed, and still with comfortable space, the Hamel answered. Gnor's eyes went wide with dumbstruck amazement. What could possibly have happened to the Promel with what they're capable of? We don't know, my friend. Alfric shrugged. We've only just now started to truly dive deep into their ruins, to try and find their lost secrets. What we do know, however, is that they're a very ancient race, existing before time itself even. Gnor was still struck with amazement at this revelation. Over time, however, it soon grew into depressed confusion. I just don't understand, Alfric. Not only were the Promel so incredible during their time, they also, from what I've heard, seem to have enjoyed the company of us Dracs. Why is it that, of all the things they could carry on, you people chose not to inherit their kindness? What did we Drac folk do to deserve such treatment by the hands of the Promel's children? Alfric stopped him and hugged him close, patting the back of his leather chest piece. It stops with us, Gnor. I do not know why myself, but I am absolutely convinced that the Promel would despise us if or when they return. And in the case that they do, I would never move past the shame and embarrassment I would feel if all they saw was what we have done. Chapter 5. Demonax was long gone from the village, having taken off on his dual-wheeled apparatus. The sun was beginning its descent behind the horizon, the sky changing from the warm blue to the interlude of a dull orange. Careful, careful now, Bjorn warned, food at the ready. Nursus was opposite him, prying open Derek's jaw so that he could eat. The wammel that descended upon him already inflicted him their vile poison, one that induces iron bone on their body. Jern's heart was breaking. He could see the immense struggle in Derek's eyes, as well as him silently crying, no doubt from the incomprehensible pain he was suffering from. They just had to hope that the surgeon from Danasis would arrive in time. They already have the advantage of rescuing him right as he was given this fate. Now if help comes just as swiftly, Derek would experience the best recovery possible. All they can do is try and keep him comfortable until it comes, as best they can. Ugh! There, go! Nursus grunted, finally opening his mouth enough for food. Jern wasted no time, delicately dropping the carefully mashed food into the paralyzed Redrak's mouth. The one thing they had was that those hit with ironbone were still capable of eating, provided you can open their mouths to give them food, as well as ensuring they don't need to chew. Okay, let go now, Jern directed once he gave the last of the serving to Derek. Nursus, with an exhausted grunt, carefully allowed Derek's jaw to close, ensuring that it didn't snap with such force that it broke his teeth. Once it was closed, Nursus backed away some, panting a little from the effort, as well as giving his arms a few shakes. I'm back, Hannah announced as she entered the room, a large copper bowl in hand. Emptied and washed. Don't think you can eat out of it, though. Wasn't planning on it. Jern chuckled some, lifting Derek's legs. Hannah proceeded to slide the bowl back under him. After setting his legs back down, Jern couldn't help but sympathize with Derek. Not only was he paralyzed along his entire body, in incredible pain from how it was done, But now he also has to suffer the humiliation of being tended to like a babe. This was the cruelty of the Melfolk. If they can't have their way with the Drax, the Melfolk will find a way to make it a costly victory. "We're sorry, Derek." Jörn couldn't help but say so, kneeling next to him. "A small price to pay compared to lying in more and more night soil, eh?" Derek let out a weak grunt as his reply. Jörn just sighed, unsure of what to say next. "I suppose there's nothing else to do for the moment," Nurses said awkwardly, scratching the back of his head. "I'll return to my shop. Call for me if I'm needed, yeah?" "Same here," Hannah joined. "Never be afraid to ask for me. I'll drop everything if I have to." "Thank you, you two," Jörn replied with a smile. "And I'm sure Derek here is very appreciative for your kindness." Derek let out another grunt. Jörn was certain he could hear it in his voice. After giving their farewells, Nurses and Hannah left the house, returning to what they were doing, but no doubt always ready for when they're needed. After taking in a shaky breath and then letting it out, Jörn began to speak his mind. "Derek, I just want to say how sorry I am. If only I had known, I wouldn't have—" He was interrupted by Derek's grunt. Jörn faced him, a surprise that changed to hope. Are you saying you forgive me, Derek?" Another grunt, and not only that, but Jörn could faintly see Derek attempting to nod, ever so faintly. Jörn let out a deep sigh of relief, feeling the entire world climb off his back. "Thank you, Derek. That means everything to me. I promise you, you won't suffer this alone." Jörn could hear Derek give a shuddering breath, as well as a fresh wave of tears from his eyes. Not handling any more heartbreak, Jörn proceeded to get onto the bed by Derek's side, making sure to be sensitive in how he approaches it. "Always remember, I'm right here if you're in need," Jörn said assuringly. And before the night truly arrived, they both nodded off to sleep after some time. Eastern Devil's Spine Mountains. Turns out he was just too impatient. As much as Hagrim wanted to give himself time to let his banged-up body get well again, the sheer humiliation he was given was just too great to ignore. And so he was back in the high rocks, skulking and hunting. He'll gladly kill any Redrac he finds, but his main target is that backstabbing shaman. And he has a pretty good idea where that shaman would go after getting rid of him, or rather, thinking he got rid of Hagrim. Armed with only a shaped rock, considering he never found his smasha, he constantly watched the horizon, always vigilant for any movement, before he made moves himself. The Reddies didn't concern him. If any of the mutinous gits saw him, he won't have time to make it to the shaman before he runs away. He needs to keep them thinking he's dead. After dashing through some rolling hills a good distance, he had to stop. He heard movement, rather close by. Seeing a nice large group of big rocks, he dived in and made sure he was well hidden, keeping an eye on the location where the sound was coming from. It was the Redracs, a lot of them, marching through the hills. Hagrim is starting to think this must be the rest of them. Was it just him who was hit by that shaman's spell? Or did the Redracs also lose some boys of their own? After seeing a group of them clearly banged up, he's starting to believe that shaman may actually have tried to help. Just was a stupid git. Maybe he'll reserve judgment until he gets back, see what the shaman was doing while he was gone. And then there was him, the blood-covered Reddy, walking around as if Hagrim's hit didn't do a thing to him. Just seeing him made his blood boil, but he knew to control himself. Even if he was at his perfect moment and had every weapon he wanted, he couldn't take them all on by himself, especially if the blood-covered Reddy was involved. He just had to let this one go. Soon. Very soon that Reddy will get what's coming to him. Hagrim just needs to get his boys back, then get some more. And when he does, he's marching straight to where the Reddies have their camps and smash them good. Take the boys, their shinies, and burn the rest. Just imagining it put a wide grin on Hagrim's face. And then the blood-covered Reddy stopped. Hagrim stopped breathing for a second, worried he's been made. After several tense moments, the Reddy pulled a shiny out from his armor and stared at it. Hagrim's interested now. A shiny that's extra valuable to this uppity vermin? Good. Another way to get at that Reddy. After the blood-covered ready pressed the shiny to his mouth for a second, he returned it to below his armor and returned to marching with the boys, who didn't seem to notice. Or maybe they did and weren't saying anything. It matters little. That shiny is Hagrim's. He just didn't get it yet. As soon as the coast is clear, Hagrim darted out of his hiding spot and returned to his march towards regaining his boys. Towards the first step of his cunning, brutal plan for that ready. Lord Scaffin? V-Nex, Scaffin's command aide, spoke softly. I don't think I've ever seen what's in your amulet. Who is it? Not your concern. Scaffin scowled at him. It's getting dark. Have the scouts found a good spot for tonight's camp? They're due any moment, sir. V-Nex nodded, quickly accepting the abrupt change of subject. Hopefully it won't be far. My feet are starting to kill me. You'll be fine, Scaffin huffed, adjusting the position of his great blade. Because of the sheer size and weight of his weapon, he had to carry it in his hand, the handguard resting on his fingers, with the blade pointing upward. Practically impossible to draw from the back, or even a side holder in combat acceptable speed. Yes, sir. V-Nex nodded, sensing that Scaffin is not in the mood for talk. Still, as stupid as he realizes it is, he's still curious. I understand it's not my concern, sir. I'd still like to know. Who is it you're remembering? Ask again and you'll be the only one on night soil disposal. Scaffin growled through his teeth. Not your concern. Apologies, my lord, V-Nex stammered, mentally chastising himself for giving in to temptation. I'll, inform you immediately when the scouts return. Good, stop annoying me already. Scaffin groaned, his temper infamous as ever. With only a silent nod, V-Nex proceeded to stay quiet, not wanting to further rouse the great legate. It would seem he was relegated to forming his own conclusion by seeking answers and clues that don't involve Scaffin. Still, V-Nex must remind himself that Scaffin is not cruel, despite what his behavior may imply. From the stories and legends passed down in the Legion, Scaffin was the one who rescued as many innocent people as possible when the Empire collapsed and led them to the safety of Iron Peaks. And from then on, Scaffin led numerous missions and expeditions against those who strike against the Redrak people. It has led V-Nex to question why Lord Scaffin hasn't embarked on a great crusade to rebuild the Empire. For all of the years he's walked this world, not once has he ever made any attempt at reuniting the Redrak people, at bringing back the glorious golden age they once ushered in. Perhaps he'd be amenable to that? My lord, if I may, V-Nex began carefully, still nervous at a possible reaction. What? Scaffin's voice dripped with heightened irritance. Do you not miss the Empire, sir? V-Nex asked, hoping that this isn't another subject that will only ruin him. What kind of question is that? Of course I miss it, Scaffin growled in a raised voice. Then, why all these hunts against the Ormal? V-Nex questioned, pressing on. You could have brought it back, bring prosperity and safety to the Redrak people once more. Why not? It seemed to have caught Scaffin off guard. He paused for a moment, struggling to find the words for an answer. Eventually, he let out a sigh, his demeanor sinking from annoyance to ... defeat ? Because there's no point. What do you mean, sir? V-Nex asked in complete surprise. From the day it was born, I gave everything I had for the Empire, Scaffin explained, his tone clearly carrying resigned defeat. Me and the others. And despite everything ... it still fell. Just another thing we lost. Are you referring to whoever is in your amulet? V-Nex questioned, eyeing at Scaffin's chest where it usually is. Did you lose someone? Like a switch, Scaffin changed from looking defeated to bristling with anger, glaring V-Nex down. We're done talking. You're on night soil disposal duty, starting tonight. What? Fine. I apologize, sir. V-Nex was shocked at first, but chose not to protest, knowing it would only make things worse for him. Within a few moments, a Legionnaire strode up and informed V-Nex that the scouts have returned, spotting a good location to set up tonight's camp. What would have been good news was soured by his new duties. Regardless, with a sigh, V-Nex passed it along to Scaffin, who then gave the order to march to their new campsite to rest for the night. Oh, and by the way, V-Nex, Scaffin said a few moments after issuing the order, stopping V-necks in his tracks. I wish to be alone tonight. Unless it's an emergency, I am not to be bothered, understood? Yes, sir. Venex nodded, knowing his unrestrained curiosity had been his undoing. Hagrim could do with some good food right now. He's been walking and skulking for a good while now. The big shiny in the sky has gone down by this point. Still, though, that means he'll have an easier time getting the jump on anyone who's keeping watch. Just as he was about to pull himself over a rocky wall, he spotted some movement a little ways in the distance. Staying still, he trained his eyes onto where he saw it. Over time, it started distinguishing itself. It was a ready. Hagrim didn't see anything that made it look as though he was with the blood-covered ready. Probably from a different camp or something. He didn't really care. Hagrim decided now's the time for some eating. Although he would prefer those fat pink things that squeal when he smashes them, he won't throw a fit if ready is the only option tonight. Not only that, but how can you fight at your best on an empty stomach? Dropping down from the rock wall, spitting his shaped rock back into his hand, he made his approach, eyes never leaving the lone Redrak. Closer, ever so closer he approached, his urge to kill rising quickly. And so far, he hasn't been made. Now he was a very short distance away. Just one quick dash and Hagrim's got him. As he readied himself, the Redrak stopped. Hagrim knew what was going on. Those readies got some good sniffers on them. Only reason that Redrak stopped to take a smell was because Hagrim's own scent was found. He made the move. Charging forward silently, the Redrak could only let out a yelp before Hagrim's rock impacted the skull. With a combination of his sheer brute strength and the way the rock was shaped, he felt and heard the Redrak's skull crunch on impact, the body crumpling to the ground instantly. As much as he didn't like having to deal with working around the fur, a boy's got to eat after all. Grabbing the Redrak's neck and giving it a good snap to make sure it's dead, he proceeded to prepare his meal. Using his fingernails, he made some good cuts into the skin, and then used them to tear off the fur. Once a good amount was removed, he sunk his teeth and began to devour the section, repeating for different, appetizing parts of the Redrak's body. Once Hagrim had his fill, the Redrak was just bloody bones with a spillage of organs that weren't good to eat. Letting his food settle for a moment, Hagrim returned back to his march towards the shaman, now truly ready for a good fight. And thankfully, he didn't have to go far. After traveling for a longer while, he finally found where the shaman would go, and he was definitely there. It was an entrance to a rather large cave, with torches on each side of the opening, and surrounding the entrance was an outside guard of boys, each of them armed with slashes and choppas. Hagrim just knew he would come here. For some reason, the shaman was obsessed with this place, saying it was holy or something. This was it, the beginning of both his return and his revenge against that blood-covered ready for making him look bad. He is an normal boss with only a rock that had a shape good for smashing. Up against an entire camp of boys with a variety of weapons, armor, and the magic of that shaman. Hagrim won't complain. That's what will make things fair for them. That is, if they continue to think the shaman is better than he is. Grinning widely with excitement, Hagrim made no effort to sneak. He just walked right into view, which definitely made an impression on the guards. Hagrim, one of them, squeaked out in pure shock. WW, we thought you was dead. You should have known better, you git. Hagrim chuckled, a grin that hid a beast waiting to kill. Not even magic will kill old Hagrim Ironhead. Now the real question, what's you gonna do now? The guards looked at each other for several moments, though it was apparent they already made their decision, all four of them grinning wide. As long as you're alive, boss, we're with you. Good answer, boys. Hagrim grinned wider, then cocking his head forward in a gesture. All right, let's go, boys. Time to squish that shaman. Good. The git's been real annoying ever since we thought you were dead. The second guard laughed. Marching forward, confident and brimming with excitement, Hagrim and his smart boys marched in towards the cave, where the rest of his followers were. And as they met up, each boy, too, was completely shocked that their boss is still alive. While most of them were smart enough to know who's in charge, there were some who thinks the shaman is the better boss. They didn't last long. Finally, they entered what was a grand opening in the cave, a massive cavern filled with spiky rocks at the top, with a few more along the floor. And right in the middle, above a nice smooth hill, was the shaman practicing some ritual. As soon as Hagrim went near the hill, the shaman spun around. His face instantly went alight with terror. Hagrim? He shouted, body frozen. That's right, you git. Hagrim nodded, his body shaking with the demand for murder. Did yous really think that a little fall will kill me? Well, no, I was just trying to help. Come on, Hagrim, the shaman stammered. You's the boss of the Ironhead boys. Why would I try and kill you? You seem pretty mad we didn't settle down here. Hagrim shrugged, glancing around the cave. Now that I'm here, I still don't see it. Why the fuss over this place? Can't you feel it? The shaman gave a hushed shout, erratically looking around. The magic in this place, there's so much of it. Never seen anything like it? Something's here. I know it. I'll tell yous what, Hagrim said after a moment of pause. If there is something here, I'll take it as an apology. Otherwise, you're dead. No, you don't get it. The shaman shook his head. Only shamans can use what's here. It's packed full of magic. If you's not careful, bam! All that magic will make you pop like a hammy head in your fist. Hagrim stared the shaman down for a good while. I don't believe you. Either fight for your life or buy it with whatever's here, got it? The shaman, feeling the walls close in on him, let out a distressed noise as he fidgeted about, desperately searching for any way out. After a rather embarrassing sight, he found the way out. The shaman grabbed his staff and began to invoke a spell. Hagrim was ready for it. Finally letting out all of the building, pent-up murderous energy within him, he threw his shaped rock directly at the shaman. Letting out a sound similar to retching, the shaman doubled back, dropping his staff where he flopped over his table, slowly writhing. Hagrim stomped his way up to the beat of his boys, who now excitedly chanted for the finishing move, the tempo rising as he got closer. The rock did some hefty damage. The shaman's entire chest was soaked in blood, and he was struggling to breathe, only giving off erratic, sharp wheezing as he did. Hagrim already had a plan on how to end his life. Grabbing him by his neck, Hagrim dragged him toward full view of the boys and lifted him up. "Aight, boys, listen up," Hagrim boomed, his voice echoing off the walls. The boys quickly settled down, eagerly listening. "Pay close attention. This is what happens if any of you think you're a better boss than I." Turning the shaman to face him, Hagrim focused every conceivable drop of rage and murder in his body towards his head. When it reached its crescendo, holding the shaman firmly with both hands, Hagrim slammed his head hard into the shaman. His life ended with a gory crunch, his face just completely gone, replaced by the mangled mess of bone, tissue, and brain. The boys erupted into an ear-shattering cheer, as if their voices alone could shake the cavern. Hagrim, without a second thought, dropped the dead, mutinous git, allowing the corpse to roll and bounce down the hill, ending in one final flop onto the floor below. "Any questions?" Hagrim let loose a bellowing, screaming roar. "No!" the boys shouted in unison. "Good," Hagrim said with a wide smile, letting out a few heaving breaths as he started to calm down. "Now that I'm back, here's what we's gonna do. That blood-covered Reddy you all saw me fighting? I has a plan for him. Thinks he can mock me? Well, I can give it right back to him, but harder. The plan is this. We's going around High Rocks and getting as many other boys as possible into our camp. Once we's have enough, we're marching straight down to where those Reddies have their camps. And once we're there," Hagrim gave his widest, most toothy grin. "Have fun, lads." The boys cheered once more, their appetite for destruction and mayhem whetted. Any weapon they had in their possession thrust high into the air. "Only one but," Hagrim interrupted, putting on a fierce glare. "If any of you see that blood-covered Reddy when we're taking their shinies and meat, stay away. He's mine." The boys shouted their assent, just fine with the prospect of rampant pillaging and destruction. "Good now," Hagrim nodded before looking towards the exit of the cavern. "Time to make us some friends, lads. Once the big shiny in the sky is up again, let's get out there and show them who their real friends are. With a bellowing, roaring cheer, the Ironhead boys were too amped up to be sleeping quickly. They spent much of the night working the energy out of their systems. Parnax Village. Jörn was startled awake by Derek's rapid, erratic grunting. Derek, what's wrong? Derek looked towards Jörn, wild abandon in his gaze. After a few moments, Derek started to calm down, if only because he remembered the situation he was in. Jörn could hear the muffled sounds of a tortured man begging for escape. You're going to be all right, Derek, Jörn said calmly, holding him in a tight embrace. Demonax is already on his way to get a surgeon. Once he's here, he'll get you out of this. Just hold on until he gets here, okay? Assuming good fortune to Demonax's travels, he'll be here the day after tomorrow. Jörn could hear the questioning sound in Derek's grunt. Jörn doesn't blame him. He can only imagine the sheer agony that Derek is forced to endure for about 2 days thus far. Not a simple paralysis, no. One brought about by forcing the body to tighten itself up as much as physically possible. Jörn knew that Derek would be a changed man as soon as the anti-poison was given. Not knowing what else to say, all he could was give Derek the physical comfort of having a fellow Redrak at his side, willing to protect and shield him whenever needed. And within his own mind, he cast every curse he could think of towards the Melfolk, them and their cruel barbarity towards his people, a hatred that could turn any man cruel. Demonax panted and heaved as he was forced to stop, maneuvering his glider to the side of the stone road. Hunched slightly and leaning on the two-wheeled machine for support, he gazed over the Prummel Road, a massive, imposing pathway for the long, spoiled metal carriages that had been overtaken by nature in the years following their fall. Whenever he spent time trying to better himself, Demonax would periodically encounter sections of this ancient, great road. And ahead of him was something that truly stood as a testament to the Prommel's prowess. The Bridge of the Gods, a massive, stone-like structure made with arches that dominated the land. Although some grass and shrubbery were growing on it, water continued to flow along its top, all the way towards Denesis. This was the guide travelers would use. Demonax was getting close. His thoughts were interrupted by the sting and roaring in his stomach, signaling his hunger, as well as the feeling of weakness in his extremities blooming. He had to make a choice. Would he rest here for the night, regain his strength? Or will he just give himself a momentary pause to eat and resume the journey promptly? He's heard stories of the Wommel's infamous poison, how as soon as it enters your body, it forces it to tighten and clench itself against your will, inducing a state of paralysis. Demonax could only imagine what the outsider, Derek, must be going through right now. And while he was grateful that he was finally given the chance to prove that he should have been messenger, not Vala, Demonax didn't want it to be this way. He didn't want to be given a chance where someone's life is on the line. He purged those thoughts from his mind. He won't focus on the fact that he'll prove himself. He's doing this to save a life. A Redrak's life. That means Derek is counting on him to get the surgeon from Denesis. Demonax made his choice. Carefully setting his glider down on the ground, he fished out some food from his pack and began to eat, making sure to strike a balance between speed and not overdoing it. After washing it down with some fresh water from his copper container, he gave himself some time to let the food settle in his stomach before retrieving his glider. Maneuvering back into the stone road, Demonax pushed himself harder than ever to reach Denesis. Chapter 6. The sun was rising above the horizon. The denizens of Denesis, slowly waking up, began to set about their day. Shopkeepers eating their breakfast before getting ready for prospective customers. Smiths setting fire to their forges, allowing it to gain heat before beginning their work. Lascivious was looking over his stock of medicine and herbs, a slab of wood in hand, rubbed to a comforting smoothness. Bearing a parchment containing a list of items to check, he inspected his shelves, ensuring that whatever happens, he's prepared for it. Once he was satisfied everything was there, the cream-furred Redrak set down his board and began to prepare his breakfast, mentally readying himself for the day. Tianak's daughter was having a very persistent cough the past several days. He hasn't smelled any signs that she's infected with chest ruin yet, so he'll need to see if there's anything else going on that's aggravating or causing it. He was startled by rapid, harsh banging on his door. Letting out a sigh, mostly of shocked annoyance, Lascivious quickly marched to the door and opened it, finding a town guard there. "Lascivious, sir, you're needed immediately." The guard spoke in a serious tone. His breathing indicated he ran for him. "What's wrong?" Lascivious already set himself to work. "Messenger from Parnax village rode through the night," the guard explained. "One of their own encountered a whamel, poisoned, and they don't have anything on hand to help." Lascivious's fur bristled. Out of everything he's treated and worked with, the iron bone brought about by the whamel's cruel poison is one that concerns him immensely. "Go back to the messenger. Tell him I'll just be a moment." The guard nodded and proceeded to run back to the north gate, no doubt where the messenger arrived. Lascivious wasted no time. Setting aside his now unimportant breakfast, he instead fished out some travel rations that'll act as replacement. Then he started grabbing up every herb and medicinal ingredient he can think of that's relevant to Ironbone. As soon as everything was packed up, he quickly moved them over to the rear of his glider, making sure to properly fasten them with the leather straps. But he also realized, if what the guard said is true, then the messenger is severely exhausted. It must be bad if the poor boy chose to push himself to danger just to get here quickly. Lascivious decided that now's a good usage of enhancing his glider with magic. Taking his seat, he let out a breath and focused, pulling the arcane wind from the air itself, guiding it and shaping it to his will. With his hands, he guided the arcane winds onto the glass sphere in front of him, where normally the steering handle would be for normal gliders. When his palms wrapped around the orb, the winds coalesced around the gear wheel that drives the two wheels. And now, with only a thought, he gently moved into motion, needing only to twist the orb to change direction. Staying in the center of the stone road, carefully navigating through the crowd that's growing by the moment, he spotted an unusual gathering by the gate. That must be where the messenger was. And once he got the edge of the group there, he was proven correct. Lying on the stone path, slumped against the wall, was the messenger, his glider resting on his foot. He must have been too exhausted to properly get off. "Are you the messenger of Parnax?" Lascivious demanded once he stopped beside the weary boy. Yeah, he replied, struggling to speak between heaving breaths. "I'm traveling to Parnax now," Lascivious stated calmly. "While I appreciate trying to call for me as quickly as possible, don't destroy yourself doing so. Stay here and rest up. I've got an arcane glider to make my travel swift." The messenger tried to give a full-arm shrug, but gave up quickly. Svin's trickery. Could have needed that. Next time you're in town, buy a spell book to start." Lascivious replied with a chuckle, hoping to keep tension down with humor. "Okay, I'm off. Good work, lad." With the gate already opened, Lascivious let loose an outpouring of magic, resulting in his glider taking off at rapid speed. Now all he has to do is pay attention to the road, and assuming Svin's fortune is at his side, he'll make it to Parnax before sunset. Eastern Devil's Spine Mountains. His plan is coming together. Hagrim took care of that mutinous Git shaman, got his boys back, or rather, most of them, and now they're all on the march to get even more from surrounding camps. Hagrim's decided they're done pretending to be on their own. It's time to bring them back in line. And he already has the first target in mind. The Rockmunchaz, the weakling who thinks he's a boss, Yag Rockmuncha, has been really mouthy to Hagrim for a while. He's been waiting to do this ever since the first word came out of that Git's mouth. As soon as the big shiny in the sky was up enough to make everything bright, the Ironhead boys began their march. At first filing out of the cave in a neat line, it soon swelled into an intimidating horde by the time they've officially left, their very footsteps thundering along the sides of the high rocks. A good warning to those they're about to run into. And now that he's thought about it, Hagrim wouldn't mind a do-over with that blood-covered ready. He's still going to march to where the Redrak camps are, no doubt about it. He just wouldn't mind if it happened along the way, that's all. But he's not going to lie. That ready knows how to fight. He didn't see much, but catching the first glimpse of that ready swinging that huge slasher and cutting his boys in two with simple swings, the brutal fight he wasn't fully expecting, that Reddy has his respect. Hagrim won't admit it, never, but the blood-covered Reddy's got it. That just makes it even more exciting. Hagrim's grinning just at the very thought of fighting the Redrak again, now that he knows what to expect. So, boss? One of his seconds, Tora spoke up. When we get there, what's the plan? I'm going to give that little boy Yag a friendly reminder of who's the boss around here. Hagrim said simply with a chuckle. If he doesn't kneel, I'll take his head and his boys. Sounds good, boss, Tora replied happily. Just let me know when you need another slasha, eh? Always like smashes better, Hagrim said with a shrug. Don't have to deal with it getting stuck in the dead sod, or worry about it staying sharp. Just smash and smash until it breaks, then get a new one. I use slashes because I like the feeling of boys getting cut. Tora gave an amused laugh. Not to mention how funny it is seeing their faces when all their blood's squirting out. Nah, the sounds they make after you smash their heads is funnier. Hagrim shook his head with a shrug. All right, look lively now. I reckon we're in Rock Munch of Dirt now. Right, Tora affirmed, passing the word to the others. Although there weren't any obvious signs, Hagrim recognizes the area. Just a little bit longer and they'll start seeing markers that the Rock Munch has put up to mark their camp. And after a few moments, there they were. Crude, sharpened wood stakes placed at narrow paths to high ground. Effigies made with the parts of various races presented in morbid pride at specific locations where it's extremely difficult to miss them. Hagrim could see Reddies and Hammies, along with a couple of others he doesn't recognize. And the final piece of it was the symbol of the Rock Munchaz, an ormal head with a ball of rock in its teeth, painted everywhere. On the high rocks themselves, on some flat pieces of stakes, wherever it could fit. And up above, on the crude battlements of the fortified area, Hagrim could see the watch beginning to scramble. They know the Ironheads are here, the entire lot of them. Good. Now comes the moment of truth. Will Yag come out and talk, or give the order to drive them out? Only one way to find out. Step by step, the Ironhead boys continued to approach the main wall leading into the Rock Muncha camp proper. Each time their feet pounded into the ground, the Rock Muncha guards took up positions, readying themselves for a fight. Hagrim still isn't sure where this will lead, so he's making himself ready for either case. Fresh smasha in hand, he rested it on his shoulder as he made sure to look as though he's just here to chat, while also keeping a close eye on the guards who prepared themselves for a fight. And then they stopped at the main wall, staring down the great wooden gate, the Rock Muncha symbol carved into the front. Hagrim could sense his boys were getting nervous or excited. Either way, the tension in the air was growing. Hagrim was starting to debate whether to speak out first, declare his intention. And then the gate opened, swinging outward. When the gates were halfway opened, Hagrim could see Yag and his personal retinue marching towards him. Looks like Yag's decided to talk. And by the looks of it, he doesn't look happy. Not surprising, Hagrim wasn't expecting today to be any different. All right, you's got 5 seconds to tells me why you marching up in here, Yag growled in warning, a hand tightly clenched around his cutta. I gots me a plan, Yag, Hagrim began, deciding to see if he can woo him over. You know the Reddies down a ways from the high rocks? We's gonna smash 'em up, take their boys and girls, their shinies, and burn everything else. And last time I looked, they's got plenty of shinies to take. Really, Yag replied, suspicious. Calling me a liar? Hagrim challenged with a glare. Nah, just a stupid git. Yag shrugged casually. Ever heard of the blood-covered Reddy? Anytime any of us tries going after the Reddies in their camps, he comes along and mucks things up. Nobody can kill him from what I've heard. Oh, I knows him all right. Hagrim nodded, his voice carrying resentment. Fought him meself. Ain't nobody to side with, I'll tells you that. Right, Yag said, once more suspicious. You sure it ain't a boy of his? That Reddy ain't known for stopping at just banging you up. He kills you proper. I got lucky, Hagrim explained with a grin. High rock we were fighting on ain't exactly strong. It broke, I fell, but I lived. Sounds like he ran away to me, boss. One of the Rockman Chaz gave a mocking laugh. Yeah, I think so too. Yag laughed as well, staring Hagrim down. Surprised you still got yourself a camp after that. Nobody else taking him. You think I ran? Fine. Hagrim shrugged, his voice eerily calm. But here's what's what. The Rockmunchas, they's Ironhead boys now. We's marching down, smashing up the readies, taking everything we like, burning what we don't. And you're dead long before we get to their camps. You's threatening me? Yag growled deeply, approaching Hagrim further with an enlarged posture. I don't make threats, you git. Hagrim grinned. I either tells you or does something. You really think you's a boss? Better prove it then. I've been waiting for this for a long time, Yag said, voice and body language exhibiting a release of pent-up, hateful aggression. And with that, the two bosses began to duel. Yag opened with a fast swing of his kutta, but Hagrim predicted it and dodged it. Grabbing Yag's arm and pinning it, he let out a roar as he delivered his infamous headbutt straight to Yag. The Rockmuncha stumbled backwards, severely dazed by the attack, all the while with Hagrim charging at him, readying his smasha. Yag got his wits back just in time, sidestepping away from the overhead swing and retaliating with another attack, aiming right at Hagrim's torso. Hagrim then quickly flicked his arm towards the Kuta, his weapon parrying the swing enough to make it glide over his head. Seeing his opening, he went for another strike at Yag's head. Yag moved to cover his head with his Kuta and charged straight at Hagrim, knocking him to the ground. And around them, ever since the fight broke out, both Ironhead and Rockmunchas cheered on their respective bosses, shouting words of encouragement and insults. A few shouted what they wanted one or both to do. Hagrim has full control over the hand Yag is using for his kutta, but is being pummeled hard in the face with the other. Yag was expecting him to slowly start to lose focus with each subsequent hit. Charging for a finishing strike, he was caught off guard when Hagrim caught his fist, laughing menacingly as he did. In one quick flick of the wrist, Hagrim deflected the strike, forcing the momentum to carry Yag downward. With one bellowing roar, Hagrim chomped into Yag's neck, his teeth sinking deep and latching on to whatever he could grab. Yag let out an agonized scream and instinctually pulled away. All it did was result in a large chunk of his neck being ripped away. As Yag stumbled back, trying to work through his shock, Hagrim spat out the piece of meat from his mouth, back on his feet. Well, now I know you ain't good eating either. Hagrim grinned, teeth stained with blood. Letting loose a savage, screaming roar, Yag charged mindlessly right at Hagrim. Dodging below, Hagrim took a step forward before winding up a strike and hammering his smasha hard into Yag's head. Yag crashed into the ground, groaning as he writhed about, the full impact now fully dazing him. Not wasting any time, Hagrim kicked Yag over onto his back, sat upon his chest to pin him down, and began using his smasha over. With each impact, Yag let out harsh grunts that, for every subsequent hit, grew weaker and more deathly. His body began growing still after initially resisting. And still Hagrim continued, caving the pathetic boss's face in after some time. Heaving, Hagrim rose to his feet and surveyed the boys. The Ironheads erupted in proud, satisfied cheering, while the Rockmunchas could only stare at their dead boss. Any questions? Hagrim gave a roaring growl of challenge. None of the Rockmunchas showed or said any dissent. Good. Now, I'm liking how many of you there are. At least this git was useful for something. I'm thinking we's ready. If there's any other camps around, they'll hear about what we's about to do. And when we're done, they'll come begging to be part of the fun. Ah, one more thing. The blood-covered ready? His camp's still around here. If we run into him, there's only one rule. The blood-covered ready is mine. You see him, you tell me. Nothing else, got it? The newly recruited boys nodded their assent. Hagrim grinned and gave an excited laugh. Good, good. Now, let's all take a bit and get to know each other. Yeah? Hagrim said, spreading his arms. Next time the big shiny in the sky comes out of the ground, that's when we're moving. For today, like I said, get to know each other. It was that night that Venex learned truly just how much night soil can build up when an army camps for the night. It's an experience he'd never wish on anyone else. And yet still, something is always stoking his curiosity. He just wants to know. During the night, he found himself traveling by Skaffan's command tent. Remembering his order, Vanex made sure to keep a good distance from the tent to ensure he didn't accidentally disturb him. That is, until he heard something from the tent. Always cursing his wild curiosity, he decided to get closer and hear what was going on. And it was then that he heard something that he never thought would happen. It was quiet, it was restrained, but it was undeniable. Scaffan was sobbing. The moment that realization hit him, Vanex could feel his entire chest drop to the very ground. His body was frozen. It must be about whoever it was in his amulet. It just has to be. Could it be a lover taken or slain by the Ormal? It may explain why Scaffan is so intense about launching attacks against them. It could also be simply family. That could also explain it. But as far as Vanex is aware of, the only family Scaffan has were the other two legendary Redrak from the Empire, Sven and Abet. And again, as far as he's aware of, those two are still alive, despite the incredible years since the Empire's fall. Could be. Abet has, other than extremely rare times, never left his grand tower to the far south of where the Empire was. One could assume that those who followed him are simply saying he's alive and hiding his death. And as for Sven, well, nobody ever truly knows the old web weaver of the Empire. Is he here or there? Has he come with good tidings or death? What does he know of this person? What could he want with them? The Night Lord seems perfectly comfortable living in the shadows, hiding in a web of his own making. Vanex is just going to have to assume that Sven is alive and well and is, well, scheming. So who is that person in Scaffan's amulet? Until he hears otherwise, Abet and Sven are alive. Vanex has never heard of Scaffan taking a wife or lover, either now or before. The questions are driving him mad. He must find the answers. "Excuse me, Devios?" Vanex approached one of the centurions. "I beg your pardon if this is odd, but are you aware of Scaffan's amulet?" Yes, why do you ask?" Divio replied with a confused shrug. "By chance, have you ever seen what was in it?" Vanex continued. "I know, at the very least, it involves a person, but not much more beyond that. Vanex, that time on night soil duty didn't teach you anything, eh?" Divio sighed. "Even I know, on the very first day, Scaffan's amulet is a subject you're to stay far away from." "You can't tell me you don't want to know," Vanex replied with an almost desperate voice. "I can, and I will. I have no desire invoking Scaffan's terrible rage just to know a name," Diviok stated simply. "If it is a person, it's one that Scaffan misses dearly. That's all I am fine with knowing." "But, fine. I get the message." Vanex sighed with defeat, posture slumping a bit. "I must ask, though, why the obsession?" Divios asked him, sneaking a glance up front to see if Scaffan was listening. "What is it about his amulet that sparked such a fire in your belly? You've heard of this mysterious Tarak, right?" Vanex began, almost whispering as he leaned close. "The lore keeper knows, but all I remember is that Scaffan once said he would happily betray the Empire if this person wished it." Surely you jest," Diviok replied, flabbergasted. "Scaffan truly said such a thing?" "Again, the lorekeeper will know." Vanex nodded with a sigh, glancing over to Scaffan for a second. "I don't know about the other two, though, but if this Tarak truly built the same bond with them, I do not doubt they too possess such thoughts." "First I've heard of it." Diviox huffed as he processed what he heard. Scaffan must look up to this, Tarak quite significantly, if he were unafraid to say such words. "I think it's the very person in his amulet," Vanex said with hushed confidence. "Scaffan's never taken a wife. The other two legends are still alive. Who else can move this undefeated machine of war to tears?" "Tears?" Diviox repeated in confusion. Vanex was silent, but he didn't need to answer. By looking at him, Divio began to see. "I see. Well, it would make sense. Are you sure?" "Not enough to say his name." Vanex sighed, the very thought sending a chill down his spine. "But unless I hear otherwise, that's where all my coin is at." "Be very careful there, Vanex," Divio warned, sneaking another glance towards Scaffan. Any approach on the amulet is a dance with his fearsome rage. If you drop that name, I can't even imagine what he'll do, which is why I'm not saying it until I am absolutely certain. V-Nex nodded. Even then, I think this is something that should remain buried. DVO sighed. Let the man grieve in peace. Let him work through it his own way. And if he doesn't, he's still killing Ormal and saving our people, so I suppose it's something we'll just have to accept. Yeah, you may be right. V-Nex nodded again, eyes forward on the march again. But still, what do you think this Terak might be? Who was the man who took in and raised 3 of the Empire's greatest persons? What kind of man was he to transform them into what we see now? I think he's a simpler man than you might believe, Daviok said after a moment of thought. He's a man of honor and integrity, that much is certain. What I mean is that he's most likely not as special as we think he was. All he did was be a good father to those 3. It's just pure luck that they became who they are. You think so? V-Nex questioned. He wasn't this ... incredible person who knew everything, taught Scaff how to wield a blade, Sven to scheme and spy, and I bet everything he knows of the world? He was just, some man who did his best in being a father to them? Life can be deceptively simple at times, my friend. DVO chuckled some. Sometimes the grandest of tales have the humblest of starts. Parnak's village. Hey, Derek, Nurses said softly as he knelt down beside the bed, resting a hand on the paralyzed Redrak's chest. How are you holding up so far? Derek let out a weak grunt, his eyes squeezed shut for a moment. I can't imagine what you're going through, friend. Nurses sighed, his chest racked with heartbreak. Just try and stay with us, okay? Demonax has to be close by Danasis by now. Just one more night and the surgeon will be here. We'll stay with you until then, don't worry. Yurn reassured. His voice choked with emotion. You'll always have someone at your side. The room fell silent soon afterwards. Derek's gentle, if sometimes shaky breathing, Yurn and Nurses making conversation to pass the time. It was some time after the sun passed midday when Hana arrived, preparing to clean out the waste bowl. After the deed was done, Hana sensed the exhaustion on Yurn. Hey, why don't you go and give yourself some time, yeah? Hana suggested, sitting down beside the bed. I can stay with Derek in the meantime. Right, thank you. Yurn nodded after a moment of debate, with Nurses following. They then made their way to the living room, where they both allowed themselves to collapse into the large wooden couch. Just one more night, Yurn, Nurses huffed, leaning forward with his hands on his knees. One more of this nightmare, and we'll be out of the woods. I don't know if I can last another, Nurses, Yurn confessed with a shuddering breath. Every time I see his eyes, it's like a demon is reaching out and crushing my chest. Hey, come on, Nurses interrupted, gripping his friend's shoulder. Breathe, Yurn. He's going to be okay. Demonax is almost at Denisus by now, and as soon as he finds the surgeon, this will be the last night Derek suffers. I know, Nurses, I know. Yurn nodded, bearing his face into his hands. It's just why? Why the cruelty? What have we done to deserve this? Have we committed an injustice against the Mel people and we forgot about it? Do they think we're responsible for what's happened? Why? Yurn, enough, Nurses interrupted again with a firm voice. I can't believe I'm the one who's trying to keep you from falling apart. You're the Tybin, aren't you? I am, Yurn said, then sighed. It's just, I feel so helpless right now. He may not be from Parnax, but he's still our kin, and we're watching him suffer unspeakable misery day and night. You shouldn't feel helpless, Nurses said simply. As soon as you realized what was going on, you did everything right. You took him back home, you went and found Demonax, the second choice for village messenger, and you sent him towards Denisus to get help. On top of that, you also stood by Derek every second of the day, keeping him company while Hana and I helped him, sometimes us exchanging duties. All we're doing is waiting and keeping Derek calm until the surgeon gets here with the medicine. Well, I'll tell you, when he gets here, it's not fast enough. Yurn sighed into his hands, taking in a deep breath as he straightened his posture. I'm also worried that when Derek is cured, will he be the same? Ironbone is nothing to laugh at. Will he even walk again? We just have to believe in the best, Nurses stated, patting Jörn's back. If we start thinking the worst will happen, well, let's just say things will look much darker from there. Tiban, a voice shouted from outside. Startled, Jörn shot to his feet and made his way to the door. It was one of the villagers, and behind him, the surgeon. Sven's fortune, Jörn exclaimed with unspeakable relief and happiness, huffing out. We weren't expecting you until tomorrow, sir. It was your messenger, Tiban, the surgeon said with a smile. He rode through the entire night to get me in the morning. As for me, well, if you can keep a secret, I took a few risks I shouldn't have to get here faster. As long as you're here, I've heard nothing. Jörn laughed and stepped aside. Please, come in. I'll show you where he is. Fast walking, Jörn and Nurses guided the surgeon up to the bedroom. Filing in, the surgeon already got to work, setting his chest down by the door. He walked over and knelt down by the poisoned Redrak. Derek, right? The surgeon said with a calm, soothing voice. My name is Lascidius. I'm a surgeon from Danasis. I'm going to take a quick look, make absolutely sure we know what we're dealing with, and I'm going to help you, okay? Derek said nothing, only that a massive burst of tears flowed from his eyes. Lascidius let out a shocked sigh, seeing the pain in those eyes. After confirming the details with Jörn, he leaned over and took a sniff at the spot where the poison was applied. Yes, it was faint, but the smell is there. Whammel poison. Lascidius knew exactly what to do. Jogging over to his chest, he began pulling out his equipment. First his copperware containing his cleaning items, then the small boxes containing bottles of ingredients, separated by intricately designed guards to prevent wobbling. Okay, good news is that this is easily curable, Lascidius began, working to calm everyone down. I just need to mix up a potion. The only uncertainty here is that, depending on how long Derek's been like this, there's a chance of lasting damage to his body. I'll be staying here to watch his recovery regardless. So far, it's only been a day and night of this state, Jörn explained, feeling the entire universe lift from his shoulders. We managed to find him just after he was poisoned. Saw the Recce himself run away. That's good, Lascidius said with encouragement. The less time he has to deal with this, the better the chances of perfect recovery. I'm going to need someone's help to open his mouth so that he can drink the potion. We've been doing that, Nurses said promptly, standing beside Jörn. Might as well finish the job, eh? Excellent. Now I just need a few moments to get this together, Lascidius said as he retrieved his mortar and pestle. The next few minutes was a strange mixture of relief and tension. Derek, the Tiban, and the villagers with him stared at the surgeon who wasted no second in preparing the potion. Those few minutes stretched into centuries in the minds not of Lascidius. Okay, it's ready, Lascidius announced, carefully holding a glass bottle filled with a bluish liquid. Get his mouth ready, please. Okay, on 3, Jörn said. On the count, Jörn and Nurses delicately opened up Derek's extremely stiff jaw. Once it was open wide enough, Lascidius poured in the potion, being careful not to drown Derek in it. As soon as the bottle was emptied, Derek's mouth was carefully closed, ever vigilant about the powerful snapback that could shatter teeth. All right now, Lascidius began, setting the bottle down. Depending on the concentration of the poison given, we'll either see it taking effect now or in just a few moments. But I promise you, you are cured. You hear that, Derek? Jörn said happily, his emotions running wild. It's finally over. You're going to be okay. Derek's breath shuddered, the magnitude of relief overwhelming him. Now I'm sure that whoever's been taking care of him must be exhausted, Lascidius said, sitting beside Derek. I can take over from here, please. Return to what you were doing. If I require aid, I'll call for you. Thank you, Lascidius. Thank you. Jörn couldn't help but wrap Lascidius in a tight, close embrace, on the edge of breaking down. All of us are in your debt, a debt we can't hope to repay. I'm always happy to help. There's no debt, Lascidius said with a smile, returning the embrace. After a few more moments of expressing relief and gratitude, Jörn and the others soon slowly filed out of the room, smiling at the prospects of recovery. While Hannah and some onlookers left the house, no doubt to spread the good news, Jörn allowed himself to collapse on the couch completely. The fear and dread of the day and the sporadic episodes of panic during the night finally catching up to him. "This is it, Jörn," Nursus said with a laugh. "Derek's going to be fine now. Lascivious will watch over him for us. A happy ending to the story, eh?" Nursus's reply was the steady breathing of Jörn. As he soon discovered, the exhausted Tybon instantly fell asleep upon laying on the couch. Laughing quietly, Nursus knew that Jörn deserved this. After informing Lascivious about it, Nursus exited the Tybon's home and made his way to his own residence, deciding that today was a good day to break out the